The ordinary turned strange. He never thought the basement would change his life. To him, it was only a forgotten place under the house, filled with dust, broken pipes, and old boxes. The walls smelled of damp wood and the air was always cold, like the earth itself was breathing down there. For years, he had promised himself he would fix it. Finally, one weekend he carried his tools down the creaking stairs, ready to turn the dark, useless basement into something new. At first, everything was normal. He worked with focus, swinging the hammer against the old wooden panels. Dust rose in the air like smoke, making him cough. He pushed aside rusty nails, broken boards, and bits of stone. The basement groaned with every strike, as if the house did not like being disturbed. But he kept going. His plan was simple: clear the space, repair the walls, and maybe turn it into a workshop. Then something strange happened. When his hammer hit the ground, the sound was not the dull thud of stone or concrete. Instead, it rang out with a sharp metallic echo, as if the earth itself was hollow. He froze. His hammer slipped from his hand and landed with a small clink on the floor. He bent down, pressing his ear close to the ground. He knocked once with his knuckles. Again, the metallic sound answered back. The basement floor was not solid. His heart began to beat faster. Curiosity pushed him to scrape away the dirt. With a shovel, he dug, small clumps of earth falling aside. Soon his shovel struck something hard. The sound was louder now, clear, undeniable. Metal buried under layers of soil and dust. "What is this?" he whispered, though no one could hear him. Slowly, he uncovered a surface. It was smooth, too smooth to be stone. His fingers brushed across it, feeling the coldness of metal. Strange lines were carved into it, running in patterns like veins. He cleared more and more until the outline became visible. It was not just a piece of scrap. It was a shape, a pod oval, large enough for a person to fit inside and sealed tight. The surface pulsed faintly, as if a light hid within, waiting. He pulled back, breathless. Sweat rolled down his neck, though the air around him was still cold. His mind raced with questions. How long had this been here? Who had buried it? He should have stopped. Any normal man would have covered it back up, called someone, and left the basement behind. But he couldn't. His curiosity was stronger than his fear. He placed his hand flat on the pod. The pod responded. A faint vibration moved under his palm, like the quiet rhythm of a heartbeat. The lines across the metal lit up softly, glowing with an otherworldly blue. His breath caught. This was no machine from Earth, he could feel it. Something alive was inside. He stumbled back, knocking over a toolbox. The sound echoed, but the pod's hum was louder. A hiss escaped from its edges, the air trembling as if the pod was waking up. He shook his head. No, this can't be real. But the pod continued to change. The glow grew brighter, spilling light into the basement shadows. Dust swirled in the air, dancing in the strange glow. The sound of pressure releasing filled the room. He could smell something sharp, metallic, alien. He wanted to run up the stairs, out of the house, out into the street. But his legs would not move. His eyes were locked on the pod, on the slow, steady cracking of its surface. A seam appeared, glowing brighter. Something inside pushed against the shell. His mind screamed danger, but another part whispered wonder. What if this was a discovery no human had ever seen? What if he had just unearthed something hidden for centuries? The pod opened slightly, the crack widening with a hiss. The light inside spilled out like liquid stars, bathing the basement in blue. His tools, the dusty walls, even his trembling hands, everything glowed under that strange light. And then he saw her. Through the gap, through the misty glow, he saw a shape. A figure. It was a woman, or at least she looked like one. Her skin was pale, almost silver, her hair long and soft, shining like threads of light. Her body lay still inside the pod, her eyes closed, as if she was in deep sleep. He gasped. This was not a human discovery. This was not history or archaeology. This was something impossible, something out of science fiction. Yet it was right there in front of him. His basement had become a secret chamber. And he was no longer alone. The hum deepened, almost like a voice murmuring from the pod itself. The glowing lines pulsed faster, matching the rhythm of a heart. He couldn't take his eyes away. He knew, whatever this was, whoever she was, this moment had changed everything. The ordinary basement was gone. In its place stood a doorway to the unknown, and he had just stepped through it. The pod awakens. The basement was no longer silent. The pod's glow filled the shadows, painting the walls in strange blue light. The air felt alive, heavy with tension, like a storm about to break. He stood frozen, heart pounding, unable to believe what his eyes were telling him. The crack in the pod widened. A sharp hiss escaped again, this time louder, almost like a breath. The sound echoed against the stone walls, mixing with the thumping rhythm that seemed to come from inside the pod. Thud, thud. Thud, thud. A heartbeat. His throat went dry. He took one step back, then another, but his eyes refused to leave the glowing seam. Something inside was alive, something that had been waiting for him to open it. The pod shook lightly, dust falling from the basement ceiling. A thin mist slipped out from the opening, curling through the air like smoke. It smelled strange, metallic, and sharp, like air from a place no human had ever breathed. Then he saw movement. A pale hand pressed against the inner glass of the pod. Slim fingers spread slowly, pressing harder as if trying to break free. His breath caught in his chest. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't his imagination. Something or someone was trapped inside. With a low hum, the pod's surface peeled back, folding in on itself like petals of a flower. Light burst out, flooding the room. He shielded his eyes with one arm, but even through the brightness he could see her. She lay inside, her body fragile yet perfect, like she had been sculpted by something far beyond human skill. Her skin glowed faintly, pale with a hint of silver. Long strands of hair floated around her shoulders, shimmering as if each one held its own light. And then, her eyes opened. He felt it before he saw it. A pulse of energy washed over him, heavy yet strangely warm. His chest tightened as if his very soul was being touched. Slowly her eyelids lifted and two eyes looked back at him. They were not human. They glowed with a soft silver fire, endless and ancient, like galaxies trapped within. He stumbled back, bumping into the wall, but he could not look away. His fear screamed at him to run, but his curiosity rooted him in place. She did not speak. Not with her mouth. Instead, a whisper echoed inside his head. You opened it. His knees almost gave out. The words were clear, but her lips had not moved. It was inside his mind. He shook his head, whispering to himself, No, this isn't real. Her gaze held him still. There was no anger in her eyes, no threat, only exhaustion, as if she had been asleep for centuries. Slowly she sat up, her movements graceful yet weak. The pod's glow faded around her, leaving only her presence to fill the basement with light. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Finally the words slipped out. Who are you? She tilted her head slightly, studying him as though he was the strange one. Then again in his mind came the whisper, Not safe. I am hunted. The word stabbed through the silence. His heart thudded louder. Hunted? By who? By what? She placed one trembling hand on the side of the pod, steadying herself. The symbols carved into the metal glowed again under her touch. A rush of images flashed through his mind. Dark skies filled with ships, fire raining down, shadows moving through ruined cities. His chest tightened as he saw things that could not be from Earth. He staggered, clutching his head. The images were gone as quickly as they came, but the fear they left behind was real. She looked at him again, her silver eyes soft, almost pleading. He realized then she wasn't just strange. She was vulnerable, alone, and whatever hunted her might already be coming. The basement creaked. A light bulb above flickered, buzzing loudly before it burst, glass raining down. He flinched. The hum in the air grew stronger, vibrating through his bones. Something outside was changing, not safe. Her voice echoed again. He backed toward the stairs, panic rising in his chest. But then he saw her stumble, nearly collapsing back into the pod. For a moment she looked small, fragile, more human than alien. He couldn't leave her. Against all logic, against every instinct screaming for him to run, he stepped forward and caught her before she fell. Her skin was cool, almost cold, yet the moment he touched her he felt another pulse of warmth spread through him, like electricity, but alive. She looked up at him, silver eyes locking onto his. You, stay? The word was broken, fragile, but it carried a weight that pressed deep into his chest. He swallowed hard, his heart racing. He should run. He should call someone. But the thought of leaving her here, helpless, was unbearable. He nodded, barely whispering, I'll stay. Her lips curved into the faintest, weakest smile. And for the first time, the basement no longer felt like his own. It felt like something far greater had entered his life, something that would never let him go back to ordinary again. The air outside rumbled, low and deep. Somewhere in the distance, a strange hum answered back. His skin crawled. Whatever hunted her had felt her awakening. The pod had opened. The alien had awoken, and the hunters were already coming. The alien beauty. The basement felt like another world now. It no longer smelled of damp wood or dust. Instead, the air carried something sharp and electric like the sky before a storm. Every corner of the room glowed faintly, as if her presence alone changed the space around her. She stood weakly beside him, silver eyes fixed on the human who had opened her prison. He could see that she was not just strange. She was beautiful, but in a way that unsettled him. Her face looked almost human, soft and delicate, but her skin shimmered faintly under the light, catching every shadow. Her hair floated around her shoulders as if it did not obey gravity fully, strands glimmering like threads of moonlight. She was not from here. That much was certain. And yet she was looking at him not with cold alien distance, but with something close to trust. For a moment, the basement was silent again, except for the faint hum that seemed to follow her. He swallowed hard. His voice shook as he whispered, "What are you?" Her lips parted, but the words did not come through her mouth. Instead, her voice pressed into his mind again, a soft echo that vibrated deep inside his skull. "I am far from home," he blinked. The words carried weight, sadness, a loneliness so sharp he almost felt it himself. Her hand trembled as she lifted it, pointing at the pod. Strange glowing lines still pulsed faintly across its surface. He could see now that the pod was not just a machine. It was alive in some way. The symbols on it shifted, moving like liquid. She looked back at him, her silver eyes dimming with weakness. "Sleep, long time. How long?" He whispered. Her gaze seemed to drift, unfocused. She touched her chest with one hand, then shook her head slowly as if even she could not measure the years. The weight of her silence made his stomach twist. For all he knew, she had been under his home for centuries, but there was no time for questions. The light bulb above flickered again, sparks dripping down. The air vibrated, and from outside came a distant, unnatural roar. She flinched, eyes widening, her body trembling. "No," she said in his mind. "Who?" His voice cracked. Her silver eyes burned brighter, filled with fear now. "Hunters." The word slammed into his mind with icy force. He felt his stomach drop. Hunters, whatever that meant, were already close. Her body swayed, too weak to stand. Instinct took over. He reached out, steadying her, his hand brushing against her arm. Her skin was cold at first, but then a warmth spread through his hand, rushing into his chest. It was like her body carried its own current of energy, connecting with him in ways he could not explain. She looked up at him, her lips trembling. Her whisper echoed inside his mind again. "You..." "Different." "Not fear, why?" He swallowed, not knowing what to say. He should fear her. He should run. But as he looked into her eyes, glowing with strange light yet filled with exhaustion, he only felt one thing. She needed him. "I don't know," he admitted. For the first time, she gave him a faint, fragile smile. It was small, but it struck him harder than anything else. In that moment, she did not look like a creature from the stars. She looked human. But the basement shook violently, snapping the moment away. The walls groaned as dust rained from above. Outside, a strange hum built, deep and powerful, vibrating through the ground. She clutched his arm, her voice desperate in his mind. "They come. Not safe here," panic rose in his chest. He had no idea who they were, but he knew he did not want to meet them. His house suddenly felt fragile, paper-thin against whatever was out there. "We need to move," he said quickly. She shook her head, her strength fading fast. "Pod. Broken. Weak." He looked at the pod. The glowing lines were fading, the hum dying away. It had opened, but now it looked like a shell, empty and useless. Whatever life it had given to her. She could not fight. She could barely stand. And yet he could feel the weight of her presence, the strange energy still flowing faintly from her touch. She was more than she appeared. He didn't know how, but he felt it. A sharp noise cut through the air like static ripping across the sky. The sound made his ears ache. She staggered, clutching her head. "They search," her voice echoed weakly. He grabbed a nearby tarp and pulled it over the pod, hiding its glow. His hands shook as he worked, heart hammering. "Then we'll hide." They won't find you. She stared at him, her silver eyes unblinking. Why, help! He froze. Why was he helping? He didn't know. Maybe it was her voice in his head. Maybe it was the look in her eyes. Maybe it was the way the pod had chosen him, responding to his touch. But the truth was simple. Because you're not alone anymore, he whispered. Her eyes softened, glowing brighter for just a moment. She reached up, her cold fingers brushing his cheek. He shivered at her touch. Human, she whispered in his mind. Maybe hope. Before he could answer, a blast shook the house. Something landed outside with the weight of thunder. The ground cracked and the air filled with that humming roar again. Her silver eyes snapped wide in fear. They are here. The warning. The ground shook again. Dust rained from the basement ceiling as if the whole house were breathing under pressure. He staggered, bracing himself against the wall while the alien woman clutched his arm, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Outside, something heavy moved. It wasn't footsteps. It wasn't thunder. It was deeper, like the earth itself was being pressed down by machines not meant for this world. She whispered inside his mind, the words sharp and filled with dread. They have come. He swallowed hard, his heart racing. Who? Her silver gaze turned toward the ceiling as if she could see through it, staring into the night sky above. Her voice came again, soft but trembling. Hunters. The word echoed in his skull, heavy and final. He didn't need an explanation. His body understood before his brain did. Something dangerous was out there. Something that had crossed stars just to find her. He stumbled to the small basement window, brushing dust off the glass. What he saw made his chest tighten. The street outside was no longer quiet. Strange lights cut across the night sky, beams sweeping like the eyes of predators. A low hum rolled through the air, vibrating the walls, making his teeth ache. The neighborhood looked the same. Houses, trees, silent cars, but the sky was wrong. It was alive with something unnatural. He ducked back down, his pulse thundering in his ears. They know you're here, he whispered. Her reply pressed into his mind, broken, heavy with sadness. Not me, us. Opened pod. They feel it. They always feel. The weight of her words sank into him. By touching the pod, by breaking the seal, he had done more than wake her. He had sent out a signal, a beacon. And now the hunters were following it. The pod behind them flickered weakly, its glow fading like a heart running out of strength. She turned to it, her face full of sorrow. My cage, she whispered into his mind. It hid me. It kept them blind now. Broken, he looked at her breathless. Then they'll never stop coming, will they? Her gaze shifted back to him. The silver fire in her eyes burned with an intensity that made his chest tighten. Until I am taken. Or dead. The words froze the blood in his veins. She wasn't exaggerating. She was telling him a truth carved into her very bones. He felt dizzy, caught between the impossible and the terrifying. He wanted to believe this was still a dream. But the rumble outside was real. The lights in the sky were real. And the woman in front of him, fragile yet powerful, was very real. She stepped closer, her hand trembling as she reached toward him. Her cold fingers brushed his wrist, and once again that strange warmth pulsed through him, spreading to his chest. You cannot leave, she said in his mind. Now so you are marked too, he stiffened. Marked? What does that mean? Her eyes closed, and for a moment he saw flashes in his mind, images not his own. He saw shadows moving across alien skies. He saw creatures with sharp limbs and hollow eyes hunting in silence. He saw worlds burned, cities broken, and screams swallowed by fire, and then he saw her, running, always running, alone. He gasped, pulling back, his hands trembling. The images vanished, but the weight of them lingered. He had felt her memory, her fear, her endless escape. They will not stop, her voice whispered again. He leaned against the wall, his chest heavy with panic. Then what do we do? I'm just a man. I can't fight something like that. Her silver eyes opened, locking onto his with a force that nearly broke him. For the first time, her voice in his mind was strong, commanding. You must choose. Help me, or they will take us both. The air in the basement grew heavy, pressing down on him. He could hear the hum outside growing louder, closer. The hunters were searching, closing in. His breathing quickened. His world had collapsed in hours. First a basement renovation, then a hidden pod. Now an alien hunted by forces beyond his understanding. His brain screamed for escape, for denial. But when he looked at her, tired, fragile, yet holding a spark of hope in her glowing eyes, he knew he had already chosen. "I'll help you," he whispered, his voice shaking. "But you have to tell me what they are. You have to tell me what we're facing." For a long moment she was silent. Then her eyes dimmed and sorrow swept across her face. "They are death," she whispered into his mind. "And they are already here." As if to prove her words, the house above them shook violently. The front door splintered with a crash, wood shattering like paper. Strange shadows moved across the walls. A low, piercing sound filled the air, making the glass in the basement window crack. He felt his stomach drop. They weren't just near, they were inside. She gripped his hand, her silver eyes burning. "Do not let them take me." And in that instant, he knew. The warning was over. The fight had begun. The first signs. The basement walls groaned as if the house itself was under attack. The alien woman's silver eyes flashed in the dim light, her grip tightening on his hand. Above them, heavy footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, inhuman. He held his breath. This was no burglar, no soldier. The sound was wrong, too heavy, too precise. Each step vibrated through the floor, sending dust drifting down from the ceiling. The woman whispered in his mind, her voice sharp with fear. "They search. They smell the light." He glanced at the pod, now covered with a tarp. Even hidden, faint blue light still leaked from underneath, pulsing like a weak heartbeat. His chest tightened. That glow. It was like a signal. He moved quickly, yanking the tarp tighter, piling boxes and broken wood on top, trying to smother the shine. His hands trembled. Every sound he made felt like thunder in the silence. The footsteps stopped. The air grew colder, heavier. He could hear it, breathing. But not the kind he knew. It was wet, ragged, clicking faintly like an animal trying to mimic life. His stomach turned. The woman's voice slipped into his mind again. "Do not move. Do not speak." He froze. His heartbeat thudded so loudly he was sure they would hear it. From the basement window a shadow passed. A shape tall and thin, bent unnaturally, its limbs too long. For only a moment its head tilted toward the glass. He saw it. A face, or what passed for one. Hollow sockets glowing faintly. A mouth that opened too wide, lined with sharp, crooked teeth. The skin looked stretched, pale, more like armor than flesh. He bit his tongue to stop a scream. The shadow moved on. The sound of scraping claws followed, dragging across walls, floors, searching. He turned to the woman, whispering as softly as he could. "What are they?" Her silver eyes burned with sorrow. "Hunters. Not alive, not dead, made only to follow." Her words chilled him to the bone. They weren't just chasing her, they were built for her. Machines, beasts, something worse. He couldn't tell. Above, glass shattered. The sound of claws digging through wood scraped against his nerves. The hunters were tearing the house apart. He pressed his back against the wall, pulling her closer, his breath shallow. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then, the radio in the corner crackled. It had been broken for years, nothing more than junk. But now it hissed to life, static spilling into the room. A voice, distorted and alien, growled through the static. Not words. Not language. Just a noise like metal grinding against stone. The woman stiffened, clutching her head. They speak. They call. The sound made his skin crawl. The hunters were not only searching, they were communicating, coordinating. The basement door at the top of the stairs creaked. A shadow fell across it. A claw tapped against the wood, slow, rhythmic tap, tap, tap. He couldn't breathe. His hands shook as he searched for something, anything, to defend them. His fingers wrapped around the handle of his hammer, the same one he had used to break the basement walls. It felt pitiful, like a toy against monsters, but it was all he had. The claw scraped down the door, leaving long, jagged marks. Then the sound stopped. Silence. Too much silence. The woman looked at him, her eyes glowing brighter. Her voice was urgent now. They test. They wait. If they enter, we die. His throat went dry. He whispered, "Then what do we do?" She lifted her trembling hand, placing it against his chest. A spark jolted through him, warm and sharp. His vision blurred for a moment, his heartbeat racing faster than ever. Her voice pressed into his mind again, calm yet fierce. "You feel me? You hear me? When I say run, you run. When I say fight, you fight." He stared at her, shocked. "Fight with what?" They'll kill me. Her silver eyes flared, a spark of strength breaking through her weakness. Not if we are one. Before he could ask what she meant, the sound came again. The basement door shook violently as if struck by something massive. Dust rained down. The hunters were done waiting. A long, low screech echoed through the air, vibrating deep in his chest. The sound was so sharp it made his vision blur. The woman clutched his arm tightly, her body trembling. They come. The door cracked. Wood splintered. One more strike and it would break. His hammer felt useless in his hand, but his grip tightened anyway. His fear burned hot, twisting into something new, desperation. He looked at her. She was weak, fragile. Yet her eyes held something powerful, something that gave him courage. "I won't let them take you," he whispered. Her faint smile flickered, even through the terror. Her voice in his mind was soft but unshakable. "Then we will survive." The basement door exploded inward, and the hunters finally stepped inside. The invasion begins. The basement door was gone. Shattered wood littered the stairs, splinters glowing faintly under the strange blue light. The hunters stood in the gap, tall, twisted things, their bodies bent at angles that broke the rules of nature. Their claws scraped against the walls, leaving deep scars. Their eyes glowed like sickly embers, empty and unblinking. And when they moved, they did not walk. They glided, their limbs jerking like broken machines, snapping into place with sharp cracks. The man's chest tightened. His hammer shook in his hand. These things weren't animals. They weren't machines. They were something worse, made only to hunt, built to terrify. The alien woman clutched his arm, her silver eyes blazing brighter than ever. He felt a pulse run through him again, hot and electric, filling his veins like fire. His fear didn't vanish, but it sharpened, becoming focus. The first hunter stepped forward, claws dragging against the railing as it descended. Its mouth opened wide, far too wide, stretching across its face. A low, wet hiss spilled out, rattling his bones. The woman's voice struck his mind like a blade. "Move, now." He lunged to the side as the hunter struck. The claw slammed into the wall where he had been, tearing through concrete as if it were paper. Dust exploded across the basement. He stumbled, coughing, but his body moved faster than before, like the pulse inside him was guiding him. He swung the hammer wildly. The iron head slammed into the hunter's arm with a metallic crack. Sparks burst and the creature shrieked, a sound that split the air like broken glass. It staggered, but did not fall. Another hunter crawled through the broken doorway, its body folding unnaturally to fit. Its claws scraped across the ceiling, sparks flying. Its glowing eyes locked onto the woman. She staggered back, still weak, but her gaze sharpened. She raised one trembling hand, and for a moment the air itself bent. A burst of silver light shot from her palm, slamming into the creature. It shrieked, its body convulsing before crashing into the far wall. She fell to her knees immediately, panting, her glow fading. The strike had cost her too much. He rushed to her side, panic racing through him. "You can't," her voice cut him off, sharp in his mind. "Stand, fight. If I fall, we are finished." He swallowed his fear and turned back as the first hunter screeched, recovering. Its claws clicked against the floor as it lunged again. This time he didn't wait. He swung the hammer upward with every ounce of strength. The strike connected with its jaw, bone, or whatever it was, snapping with a sickening crunch. Black fluid splattered across the floor, steaming where it landed. The hunter reeled back, letting out a distorted howl. For a brief, impossible moment, he realized he could hurt them. They weren't invincible, but then, the others came. More shadows pushed through the broken doorway, tall and jerking, claws dragging along the floor. 4, 5. Their glowing eyes lit the basement like lanterns of death. His chest heaved. His hammer felt suddenly small again. The woman stood weakly, silver light flickering around her body like dying fire. Her voice echoed through him, stronger now, burning like a command. "You fight. I guide." And then he felt it again, the pulse, the surge. His heart raced faster, his muscles tensed, his vision sharpened. The basement was no longer dark. He could see every detail, the twitch of their claws, the shift of their limbs, the glow of their eyes. The hunters moved as one, shrieking in unison. And the invasion began. The first leapt forward. He swung hard, the hammer colliding with its skull. A sharp crack rang out and the creature collapsed, twitching violently before going still. Another lunged low. Instinct, or the woman's energy, moved his body faster than thought. He dodged, rolling across the floor, coming up behind it. He slammed the hammer into its spine. The creature screeched, folding in on itself like broken metal. But there were too many. One claw swiped across his chest, tearing his shirt, slicing skin. He cried out, stumbling back. Pain burned hot, but before he could fall, the woman's hand pressed against his back. The warmth surged again, closing the wound enough to keep him standing. "Do not stop," her voice cut through his mind. "They cannot take me. You cannot fall." Another hunter crawled along the ceiling like a spider, dropping down in front of them. Its mouth opened wide, rows of jagged teeth dripping black fluid. It hissed, raising its claws. For the first time, anger cut through his fear. He roared, swinging with both hands. The hammer smashed into its face, bone-shattering. Black fluid sprayed across the floor, sizzling like acid. The creature collapsed, twitching before going still. His chest heaved. His arms ached. But he was still standing. The woman's silver eyes glowed brighter now, filled with something new, not just fear. Hope. "You learn," she whispered in his mind. But there was no time. The remaining hunters shrieked together, the sound shaking the house. They moved in from every side, claws scraping, eyes burning. The invasion was not over. It had only just begun. Humanity fights back. The basement was a battlefield. Broken wood, cracked stone, black fluid dripping from the walls where hunters had fallen. The air was heavy with smoke and static, alive with the sound of claws scraping closer. The man stood at the center, chest heaving, shirt torn and stained. His hammer hung in his hand, its metal head slick with alien blood. His arms trembled, but his eyes, once filled with fear, now burned with defiance. Beside him, the alien woman leaned against the wall, silver light flickering weakly across her body. She was exhausted, her strength almost gone, but her eyes shone brighter than ever. "They will not stop," her voice whispered inside his head. "More come, always more." He spat black fluid from his lip, wiping it with the back of his hand. His voice shook, but his words carried weight. "Then we don't stop either." The hunters shrieked in answer. Their glowing eyes filled the basement doorway. Dozens of them now, crawling, jerking, twisting their bodies unnaturally as they pressed inside. The air vibrated with their hunger. He gripped the hammer tighter. His arms felt like stone, his lungs burned, but something inside him refused to break. He had seen her, weak, hunted, but still alive, still fighting, and if she could stand against this endless nightmare, so could he. The woman's hand brushed his shoulder. Her silver eyes locked onto his. "You are not only human now," she whispered in his mind. "My light, your fire, together stronger." And then he felt it, a surge unlike anything before. Not just warmth this time, but power. His chest filled with light, his skin tingling with fire. His vision sharpened until every hunter moved in slow motion. He could hear their clicks, their breaths, their twisted heartbeats. For the first time, he didn't feel prey. He felt like a weapon. The hunters screeched, charging as one. He roared, swinging the hammer. The strike split the skull of the first, black fluid spraying like acid. He spun, smashing the jaw of another, bone snapping like glass. His body moved faster, stronger, guided by her energy and his rage. The woman raised her hand weakly, silver sparks flashing from her fingers. Each spark hit a hunter, slowing them, burning holes in their twisted skin. She staggered, nearly collapsing, but refused to stop. They fought as one. One hunter leapt from the ceiling. He slammed the hammer upward, catching it mid-air, sending it crashing into the wall. Another lunged low. He kicked hard, bones cracking, then crushed its skull with a swing. The basement shook with every blow, every shriek, every crash of alien bodies. But still, they kept coming. He stumbled, breath ragged, arms burning. A claw ripped across his side, sending hot blood down his ribs. He dropped to one knee, vision blurring. The woman crawled to him, her hand pressing against his chest. Her voice cracked in his mind, desperate but fierce. "Stand. Humanity does not kneel." Her light poured into him again, brighter, fiercer, burning through the pain. He gasped, surging back to his feet, his grip tightening on the hammer. He screamed into the chaos, swinging with everything he had. A hunter fell. Then another. Then another. The floor shook violently. The walls cracked. And then silence. The hunters lay broken across the basement, their black blood smoking in pools on the floor. The man stood trembling, his chest heaving, his hammer slick and dented. His entire body screamed in pain, but he was alive. So was she. The alien woman leaned against him, her silver eyes soft, filled with something he hadn't seen before. Not just survival. Not just fear, hope you fight. Her voice whispered in his mind, gentle now. Not like them. Not like me, strong. Because human. He let out a shaky laugh, though his throat burned. I don't feel strong. She touched his cheek, her fingers cool, her eyes glowing faintly. Strength is not the body. It is the will. You are proof. For a moment, the basement was quiet. Just the two of them standing among the ruins of monsters. Then, the ground rumbled. He froze, heart sinking. Outside, the sky lit up with strange fire. The hum returned, louder, heavier, filling the air like thunder. The woman's eyes widened. More, she whispered. Not just hunters, greater, stronger. He stepped back, gripping the hammer again, even as his arms shook. His heart pounded, his fear returning. But now, beneath it, there was something else. Resolve. He looked at her, his voice steady. Then we fight again. She stared at him, stunned. For the first time, a real smile touched her lips. Humanity, she whispered, almost in awe. The house above them groaned, the ceiling splitting as light poured through the cracks. The night was no longer dark, it was burning with ships, shadows, and war. The invasion was not over. It had only begun. And in that basement, standing beside an alien fugitive, one man had shown the universe the truth. Humans do not surrender.